the toughest part of coaching, it doesn't matter whether you're a high performance coach, a junior coach, a beginner coach, is you're always putting the athletes in potential harm's way. Like the riding is so tough on them because you can't control what's happening around them. Like Matt and Kai Wild, who was coaching at the time, were doing a 90-minute easy ride and hit the top of the hill, and they've come down the other side and they're probably going 45k an hour, and someone opens the door. Someone was parked, doesn't look over their shoulder, opens the door, and the boys are all over the road. Matt's got a dislocated shoulder. Kai's got fractures in his back and couldn't move initially. And I actually wasn't on the ride. So I get the phone call, and it's the worst thing is when you get a phone call. I can't remember who it was. I think it was one of the girls rang me and said, Dan, the boys are getting taken off to hospital. They were doing an easy ride. And I just remember just the blood going out of me. Like I was just cold. And I wanted to know how serious it was. And of course, they didn't quite want to give all the information. They just said they're going to Gold Coast private, so you better get there quick. And there was a million things running through my head. But I just remember I'm almost done with this. I just hated the fact that here's an easy ride and two of the boys I coach are off to hospital. And I remember turning up there and sort of running through feverishly trying to find them, and found them in a public ward, and they were side by side. And Kai was really upset because he didn't know what was going on with his back, and Matt's shoulder was out of, was dislocated, and it was just carnage. And at the end of that, I remember, I don't know how long I was there for. It was at least a few hours waiting for their families and so on to turn up. But it was just honestly the worst feeling I've ever had. And I remember the same phone call I got when Luke Harrop had a major accident. And
most people wouldn't know of Luke Harrop. Like only probably a few people nowadays would remember Loretta Harrop. So obviously Luke was it brother or husband?
Loretta is Luke's older sister. And I was in the same grade at school as Loretta. But Luke, I was a year younger than everyone in my grade. So Luke and I were the same age. And so him and I were in the same football teams, cross-country teams, swimming teams. And then, he morphed into triathlon and he went on this really amazing run as a triathlete. And unfortunately, he was hit by a car of a lady that was out on parole. She had drugs and alcohol in her system and threw him over a barrier there at Gold Coast, and just again an easy ride. So just
most innocuous situations can just turn sour.
And it's funny, Macca, that now I don't reckon I touch a bike or get in a group, whether I'm on the scooter with the boys or whatever, that I am not still reminded of those 2 days. And I think,
I think I've seen it as well in like your coaching on the ground. Like there was a session once, it was like hill reps up springers, and there were some athletes who were doing U-turns at the top, but they weren't looking when they would turn and do the U-turn and little things like that. Which the athletes in the moment, it's no big deal to them, but you could see that experience translate into the daily coaching. Like you would sort of get up them about not checking over their shoulder and that sort of thing.
Well, it can take so much away. You can prepare for 4 years for an Olympics, and then you're out on an easy ride like the boys were, and you've just got to be so aware of what you're doing on the bike, and you can't trust anyone or anything. So I don't ride anywhere without a headlight and a rear light. That's just who I am now. And it's so important that we're very, very safe, because as a coach, it just, like, honestly, I was done. I was done with coaching that day when the boys were in the hospital. I'm just like, I've lost my best mate. I lost, and effectively Matt was out for a whole year after that. Kai was out for a substantial amount of time. and had ongoing issues and stuff like that. So it's just so damaging.
People just take it for granted, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But it's also why I guess I'm really safe on the bike. So with some of the kids I coach now, I coach safety first, you know, how to look and how to ride side by side and don't half wheel and you know, how to be there for your mate. Basically, if you're at the back, you've got to call out for the front, and just things like that. I think is really important as a coach to teach, because it'll get taken away so damn quick.
Yeah, that's probably a good segue into, like, I guess, basics of triathlon or swim, bike, run. Yeah, cycling probably has different basics to swimming or running, with the safety on the road side of it before you actually kind of get them training. But maybe before we go into the basics and that sort of thing, like, you've been on a number of podcasts recently, and I'm sure you're sick of telling your story, and I know I've heard it a number of times, but there's going to be many who haven't heard your sort of background and that sort of thing. But where did sort of coaching kick off for you? Like, I remember back in the Grange days on the pool deck there, I was doing my level 1 and doing the prac coaching with yourself as the mentor. Obviously that was probably a little bit down the road from when you started, but when did it all kick off for you?
Thanks, Macca. I started coaching officially in 2003, but I think even before that, I was at a point where I was a triathlete, and I knew that I wasn't going to be a full-time elite. I knew I wouldn't be necessarily on that Olympic journey, but I also knew how passionate I was about the sport, how much I loved the diversity, the opportunities the sport came with, you know, traveling overseas, seeing some wild and wonderful places that, you know, every year I go somewhere different, and I'm always so excited to go somewhere different that the sport takes us, that it's such a thrill to be able to get on a plane and go somewhere like that. But I think it started when I was sort of starting to think about stopping triathlon, and I'd gotten into the fire brigade, and I decided that, that was it. I'm going to go all in on the fire brigade. That was going to be my career. And I was doing some sort of, not coaching, but I was sort of riding with some of the elite females that we had, like Natasha Badman, who won 5 Hawaiis. We had Uda Mukel, who was a German national team member, and our coach would be like, "Oh, you just go with Dan." And
so you're like the female head coach in a way?
Yeah, somewhat. But I think I was just that dependable guy. I was, you know, if Natasha said to me, "We've got to do a 130K ride in the lead up to Hawaii, and we've got to do a 40K time trial in the middle of it," I'd know exactly where to go. You know, we'd be heading out to the roads to Dayborough, and then knowing, you know, that on the way back, I'd tow her back because she had a 6K swim in the afternoon, and I'd really look after her and stuff like that. So I was sort of already coaching before I knew it. And then 2003 came around, and I'd been, by that stage, in and out of the fire brigade pretty quickly, to be honest. And I decided that my coach at the time had an opportunity with a swimming business, and he said, "You know what, you'd be perfect for this. Why don't you and I go in on this?" And I went, "You know what, why not? I love swimming." And that was at Wilston Grange, and, you know, I was there for 6 years, and it was amazing. But I was just a swimming coach, and it was sort of 2006, 2007 that I decided that I had a lot of kids that were great swimmers, but they were getting a bit bored, and I knew I was going to lose them to high school and to other programs and stuff like that if I didn't do something. So we did a lot of cross training, and there were some Tuesday night swims where a couple of my mates would turn up and put their bikes on the side of the pool and ride to the swim set. So if it was 10 200s on the board, they'd ride to the 200s, and the kids were getting curious. And
so they'll do like intervals as long as it takes them to swim 200 meters.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a session that I've carried through my whole career as a coach, whether it's a swim session, but you can bring your bike if you don't want to swim. And some people who ride on the side of the pool, but that's sort of where it started. The kids were starting to get curious, and we did much like what I went to yesterday, All Schools. We did the Queensland All Schools Aquathon, and I think 2 of our kids actually ended up winning it straight away. And that just lit the flame. And, you know, bit by bit, I just got more and more into triathlon coaching. And yeah.
And you probably saw that a little bit yesterday as well at all schools. There's a couple of younger, sort of less experienced triathletes who come in from swimming, and you sort of see that instantly they kind of, they're in and around it, you know, in and amongst the sort of top queue.
It's such a great concept, and I think we need to do more to try and capture some of those kids, because there was heaps of kids running around in surf Ironman, Shaw and Parker sort of singlets and wearing the jammers and stuff like that, and we need to do more to capture some of those kids to sort of, because to be honest, the bike's so exciting, and I know the young ones that I'm working with, they love the bike and love going fast, and it'd be great to sort of capture some of those kids. But yeah, it's a great breeding ground for triathletes for the future. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, you've been around a while and you've gone through a number of phases, and you're obviously at the very top of it right now. How have you found your coaching philosophy start out or develop over time or change? Yeah, what sort of phases have you gone through with that, and where are you sort of, after all that experience and time with all these athletes, where have you sort of settled on it now?
Yeah, I think there's been three critical phases in my career, Macca, and the first one was I sort of fell into it through my own passion. I wanted to be a swim coach. I wanted to go to the Olympics with athletes in swimming, and I was really on the pathway to that. I had, 2012, we had 3 athletes at the Olympics of 3 different sports. And that's something I'm really proud of: a swimmer, a water polo, and a triathlete. And that was 216.
Yep.
But even before that, we had a couple of swimmers at 212 that came from our swimming pool, and I wanted to stay that path, but triathlon slowly sucked me back in, and I think the biggest thing that allowed kids to feel curious and want to get into triathlon was because they saw how fun it was. They saw the enjoyment in it. They saw the diversity in it, and I think they saw me train as well. Some days after swimming, I'd have my bike there, and then I'd be then going off riding with some of the pros that I was mates with. And I'd do the pro hours during the day, as an athlete, and then coach in the afternoon and the morning. So really it came from my early philosophy was fun and enjoyment, and just being active is great. And, I couldn't harp on that more now with how many kids are on phones and stuff like that. And seeing kids outside running, riding and swimming and doing their thing is just part of the reason I do what I do. So I think the early philosophy was just inclusivity, fun, enjoyment. And through that, we'll get better. Yeah. I think always in the back of my head, there's been this performance mindset of we want to make it as very far as we can go. And I'll navigate that with you, and I'll evolve and try and improve my level of skills along the way to try and help you get there. So that was probably the first phase. The next phase, when I went into the AIS scholarship role, it got a bit serious, and I was told pretty early, you can't be their friends. You can't be going to the cafe with them. You can't be going on long rides with them. You can't. And so I was starting to think, okay, well, maybe if I want to be this Olympic coach that I have dreams of, then I've got to sort of take it a bit more seriously. And after 2 years, I realized that wasn't who I am. The way that I go about things is to get to know the athlete first rather than coach the athlete, if that makes sense. So it's really to get inside the mind of them and understand what makes them tick. What do they do outside of the sport? Do they have brothers or sisters? What's their family like? How do they want to go and study? All that sort of stuff was a way to just be able to communicate to them whilst on a long ride. If you're out there and you're riding for 3 hours with someone, you want to have some pretty good conversations. So after the 2 years with the scholarship role, I went, you know what? I think I'm going to try and do this my way, because I was sort of held back from being who I was naturally.
Yeah.
And
Did you have much in that AIS scholarship? Did you have much like coach development around like you as a person, how you like to operate, and your individual strengths and weaknesses, or was it more technically focused, or how was it sort of roughly set up?
It definitely wasn't technically focused. It was more it was more about understanding the high performance systems in Australia. So there was two parts of it. One part of it, I worked for Oz Triathlon, which was Triathlon Australia back then, and I worked in the high performance setup, and there was a head coach and I was the assistant, and I was to work across all the state institutes and sort of spend time with each of them. And at that time, all the money of sport was held by the Australian Sports Commission. So we had a VIS program, a QAS program, an AIS program, and an NSWIS program. So we had those 4 programs running all as separate silos. And of course, what that did was made it ultra competitive, and everyone was sort of had different pots of money to work with. So some had more than the other. And so I felt that, some athletes were being hampered because they didn't get the same opportunities, and some were getting more opportunities. And I just felt it was not the right way to go about it. And lo and behold, fast track to now, and it's all one big pot of money that's organized through AusTri, which I think's better.
Yeah.
And, but what that did was make me get really confused, because I'd be going around all these programs and I'd see the QAS with the bells and whistles, and then I'd go and hang out with VIS, and they were just down and dirty and training hard. Yeah. So it was a good experience that I got to learn a lot of what not to do as a coach, but it also made me realize that the stakeholder management, being able to be a politician, being a good communicator, not just to the athletes, but to the people that sit above you in the administrative roles, were really the people that drove what was happening, regardless of your success or failures. Yeah. So it was really an interesting time that I sort of navigated around how to communicate to people in higher positions. So that was probably the best thing for me, because I came out of it going, I feel like I'm good at relationship building, but even more than that, relationship maintaining. So maintaining good relationships is really important. Yep. Rather than just creating a relationship. So that was really good. Yeah, I felt. And then it was time for me to just jump back into my own thing and see if I could do something with it. Yep.
And so you've gone through that second phase, you call it. What was the third and final form of Atkins?
Well, the third was going back and doing it. Yeah, the third was going my way and sort of backing myself, I guess. And I've always had some really good mentors that I work with to this day. And to be honest, some of these people give me a kick up the arse when I need it. They're not my friends and, give me a cuddle every time I do well. They're also the people that will ring up and say, what happened? Where can you get better? And they're the people I love in my corner. I don't need to be patted on the back 1,000 times. I need to be held accountable to what I do. And I take real pride in having some of those people in my corner. And they're people that have been there since early 2000s. And there's some that I don't talk to much. There's some that I'll talk to a lot. And there's some that'll just text me every now and then and say, good job, or what happened. And I think that's really important as a coach, that you've got that network that you can depend on to cut through the crap with you. Because there's been so many ebbs and flows that I've been through in the last 10 years, especially in the last sort of 7 or 8 years at AusTri, that if I didn't have them in my corner and I didn't have that early development in how to manage things, I don't think I would have survived. And to be fair, pretty much everyone that was there in 2010 is not there as a coach anymore. So I'd like to think that I'm a bit of a survivor as well, which...
Yeah, if you look back at, I guess, names of coaches and whoever else has been through the triathlon pathway, high performance, or even at a high level sort of junior-ish sort of group, yeah, like you said, I think maybe you was, and I don't know how long Danielle's been in the tri system for, but you three are probably the remaining survivors, I guess, in Australia.
That's probably right. And to be fair, even the three of us have ebbed and flowed through our relationships. There's been moments where we haven't wanted to talk to each other. There's been moments when we've cried together and shared beers together. But I think the biggest thing is the respect that comes out the other end. And the respect I have for those two is enormous, because whilst I was in the system the whole time, they weren't necessarily. So to the position I'm in now, where I'm not employed by Oztri anymore, and I lent on them quite heavily at the end of my contract in May, and they've helped me a lot to sort of come out the other end, and just having their support and having them, no, we back you, keep going, you're doing a great job. That's all you need to hear, right?
Yeah.
But coming from those two meant a lot. And I'm pretty sure they both know I'd do anything for either of them.
Yeah. So you said like your philosophy, I guess, at the moment is my way. So how does that look to an athlete? Like if you're on pool deck with them, you're on a ride or at a race, how would someone who's never sort of interacted with yourself as a coach athlete, how would that sort of look to them, do you think?
Well, I'm having a conversation with an athlete today, and he's interested in moving to the Gold Coast. And the first conversation was, I said, why here? And he simply said, well, from what I see you do, I think I can be a good fit for you. And I said, explain that further. And he said, well, I'm going to give you the best consistency. I'm going to turn up on time, and I'm going to give you everything you ask of me. And I went, that's great. That's as simple as what it needs to be. I want everyone to be who they are. I don't want to change. And you can imagine the amount of characters I've had over the years from, and great people, Lorcan Redmond, Daniel Coleman, Oscar Dart. They're three people that I look at now and just, I smile every time I think of them. And all three of them, hugely physiologically talented, but they were just, I hope they don't mind me saying, they were just so hard on themselves. And I'm as happy now that they're out of the sport than I was them in the sport. And I think that's because I see them flourishing now outside the sport, which, Dan's married now, and Oscar's rocked up at my place on his gravel bike the other day just to say hi. And that to me is a huge sign of respect, that he took the time to ride past my place and just say hi. And that's a real thrill to see that. But I want athletes to be who they are first as a person, because initially they were trying to stop me be who I was. And I thought, no, that's not right. Like, if I'm not good as a swimming coach, a running coach, or a riding coach, and I don't understand the knowledge of the sport or what it takes to win, then not a problem. Beat that into me, but don't beat out of me who I am and what got me here. So I'm really conscious of today's athletes, that I allow them, if they want to turn up late, that's on them. It's not on me. I'm not going to punish them for being late, because they're the ones missing out, not me. I'm going to be there on time. And the people that are
the ones who are going to, the results and the performances and goal attainment is going to flow from that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's no salt mine what I do. It's well, this is the time we're meeting. If you're there, great. If you're not, we'll catch up.
Yeah.
If you don't turn up, well, that's on you.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of, I've battled that. I've battled the disciplinarian, the dictatorial coach, and if you're late, you're going to do 800 fly like I had to do, or something like that as a kid. But I think those days are done. Yeah. And I
think a quote I've heard you say a couple of times is, "I'm not Jesus," as in they think they can just turn up and all of a sudden they're going to be good.
Yeah.
But they've still got to understand and learn the behaviors of a elite athlete to get the results of an elite athlete?
This sport is so tough. Like, I've coached cycling, swimming, running, AFL, NRL, touch football, triathlon, obviously. I've coached boxing coaching. I've done all sorts of sports as a coach. There is nothing tougher than this sport to get it right. It is so hard because of the management of the session planning, the intensity control, the load management control, injury management, recovery management. It is just a 24/7 job. And the moment you don't treat it that way, it'll get taken away from you.
Yep.
And that's one thing I try and talk to athletes about, is that it's no one else's fault that you haven't done well. You need to take accountability, but we should sit down and work out, okay, what do we need to take charge of? And I take it very personally when athletes don't race the way they want to, but I scratch my head when they're not taking accountability to their own races, and they go, oh, this person fell in front of me, or this person pushed around me and I couldn't get past them, or this person dropped the wheel, or I got hit in the swim, things like that. They're the things that I go, well, okay, that happened, but how do we make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah. And that's all those things are probably what I'm seeing, and I'm guessing you're seeing it as well, is I call it like the penny, waiting for the penny to drop with a lot of people. Because in the, I guess, pre-junior world or junior world triathlon level, it's a bit more of like a cuddly, feely kind of race training environment where everything's fine. Oh, there's always another race. I will just try and do this next time or whatever. But then they kind of cross this threshold into, I guess, developing elite athletes or trying to go on that journey. But there's a lot of those sort of lessons to learn where just because you do get hit in the swim, that's not an excuse for a poor performance. You need to develop ways to cope with that, or ways to ensure it doesn't happen again, and buy into those, whether it's a training method or whatever it is, to take that next step forward. So is that something you're seeing where just, I guess, athletes, some home coaches, parents at that sort of younger level, just really kind of haven't clicked on to, like you said, like how hard it is in elite triathlon?
I think there's two parts to this, Macca. I think the first part is there's so many options out there for athletes now. You got an athlete that's got the option of 5 different run groups a week. And so they're picking and choosing, and they're challenging their coach, their triathlon coach. Oh, well, my mates run here on a Tuesday. Can I go there? And you go, but we've just done a quality run session tonight on a Monday. Yeah, but all my mates are there tomorrow. And you go, well, as a coach, you sort of want to be a bit flexible with what they're asking, because you, again, come back to my philosophy, you want to make them happy. You want to make them feel engaged, and you want to make them feel heard. That's just the way it is now. You've got to let athletes be heard. And coaches are sort of accepting that they've almost got to let their athletes go off and do the run club down the road, or the swim squad down the road, or the open water swim down the road. And they're turning up tired to training. They're turning up absolutely exhausted, or what's even worse is we've got such a history of stress injuries and immune system problems and stuff like that, where the athletes aren't available. I use that as a key word. How available can you be? So I try and make sure that I'm on the easy stuff, not all the time, but I'm on the long, slow rides. I'm at some slow runs. I do the warm-up runs on the bike and things like that. So I can just communicate, look how they're feeling, look how they're going. But it's really hard for coaches at the moment to take control of their athletes, because there's so many shiny, it's like a Christmas tree. My Christmas tree is bigger than yours, and it's got shinier tinsel on it. So you just get sucked along to that.
And my content is better than yours, and
or whatever, or we might run at a nicer track than you, and you're allowed to wear spikes at ours or wear race flats or whatever. So there's almost a panic in our athletes that they don't understand what it takes to win. They just think going hard all the time is the way to go. Whereas if they saw, some of our training, that 85% of it's done aerobically, and the same thing week in, week out, the same thing. Monday morning ride, Monday afternoon swim, away we go. It's just the same, rather than chasing shadows, as I call it.
Kind of just like chasing every person in a run group and trying to beat them, or trying to find the next race to go out and win, or whatever you're trying to do.
And I understand when there's so much on the line for athletes. Like, they want to make worlds teams, they want to make South Coast regional teams, they want to make state teams, all this sort of stuff. But if we could just get our athletes to be a bit more patient, and parents, to be fair, if we educated them a bit better on, look, just buy into this long-term development. Let's buy into the fact that not everything we have to do is sexy. It doesn't have to be flat out 4 1Ks or 10 4s. It can be, let's go for a long, slow run and then do some drills at the end of it. Do a 30-minute run, come back, do 4 run-throughs, do some really good quality drills. That, to me, is as good, if not better, than doing a quality hard run session back to back.
Yeah.
But we're a long way off getting the buy-in from everyone involved. And coaches need to drive this as well. And I appreciate it's a livelihood, and for every athlete we lose. And I spoke to plenty of coaches yesterday. We've seen a downturn in our athletes commit to our coaching services. And these are full-time coaches. And I said to them, do you think it's because they've got too many options now? And he said 100%. They're going off to 3 different run sessions a week, 3 different squads. They're doing an open water swim session, a squad swim session. And he said, we go from having them 7 times a week to having them 3 times a week. And they turn up to our training session and they're absolutely buggered, or they're starting to break, or whatever it is. So we've got to somehow get our coaches the education they need, not just on how to plan the training really well, but how to communicate and educate.
Maybe cross-communicate. Maybe that's a newer skill that, I guess, home or club coaches need to develop, is communicating across. If an athlete's going to a swim and a bike and run groups, maybe cross-communicating to those coaches somehow, or through the athlete. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't stop my athletes wanting or having a look at other programs, but I will challenge them if I don't think it's 100% what we should do. And I'll ask them 3 or 4 questions, and I'll say, so you've just done a hard thing here. You're going to go off and do another quality run session here. Is that like, I'm going to be asking you to go pretty deep in this session. You want to turn up tomorrow and we've got no control. Oh, I'll just jog easy. But you just said you want to be there because you want your mates are there. Are your mates going to run easy with you?
Yeah.
Well, I'll let them do their hard part. I went, well, why don't you just meet them at the cafe after the session instead of being at the session? Instead of paying $20 on top of whatever you're paying me, to then just meet at the cafe afterwards and have a chat.
Yeah.
So we've got.
I think that,
like, it all.
Yeah, and like challenging athletes. I was similar to yourself, talking to a few people yesterday, and one young athlete who's 17 who didn't swim very well. I was talking to her and her dad, and she was like, "Oh, my swimming sucks" or whatever. And she's a runner, so obviously runs a whole bunch. And I just sort of said to her and her dad, I said, "Have you ever talked to a good swimmer and asked them how they train?" And because you can't just tell someone who's running the house down and doing very well at running, hey, you need to back that off so you can swim better. So challenging, like you said, challenging them on what they think they know is to be right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the education needs to be not just with the athletes. We've got to include the parents and the parents are the stakeholders of these young kids. They're floating financially, they're driving them there, they're housing them, doing whatever. And we need to then go, well, let's try and put some education around the parents and the support system there, but then encourage the coaches to drive some of this change as well. Yeah. And with but there's such a fear of loss, I think, with coaches at the moment, because, you know, there's not a lot of full-time coaches, and I can 100% understand why. It's so hard to get lane space. It's so hard to get a track. It's so hard to invest into this, that, and the other. But if we can just get our athletes on program, create some consistency that's really nicely managed and nice flow to it, then it might take us 2 years, but I can 100% guarantee you we will get better as a nation in our pathway systems.
Yeah. So what's the consequence if things kind of just keep going as they are going for any junior or under 23 triathlete in inverted commas who's trying to progress along that triathlon pathway? What's the outcomes or the options that they face?
Well, if they keep trying to squeeze more out of them than they should, they'll break, and they'll never get the consistency they need to race well. And generally what happens if you don't race to the level you want to race, you get a bit sick and tired of it, and you walk away from the sport. So, you know, injuries are the probably number one reason why athletes walk away from the sport. If they were all successful, they'd stay in the sport. But the tough stuff is managing injuries, understanding why the injury happened, being really honest, being really open, reaching out to people that are more knowledgeable than yourself or your support team, and asking the hard question. Like, no one likes to hear the truth when it comes to injuries. They don't want to hear you did too much, you didn't fuel adequately, you didn't.
It's always my shoes or my technique or.
Correct. And I want to say this really clearly, that injuries aren't created by the shoes. That is just the end point. If you've got a foundation of strength and conditioning, you will not get injured if you fuel that adequately. So I hope that's clear to people. That is the number one thing to maintaining athletes on the paddock, is if they have got a great foundation of strength and conditioning. Now, strength and conditioning can be a lot of things. It can be in the gym. That's a small part. It can be riding hills slowly, doing strength endurance efforts, learning how to ride your bike, having a really good platform on your bike that you set up. You know, you're technically really good in the pool. You have a great core stability that lifts you up in the pool. And when you run, you manage that percentagely, very minimal intensity, very high percentage of aerobic conditioning with really good form. Then if you fuel it all adequately, then you'll come out a strong, robust athlete that's just turning up to every race ready to go. But I'm seeing people turning up tired to races. They can't push. They're fatigued because they've stressed out their anaerobic system too much through the week, or they've tapered too much. And when you taper off your body that's done 10 hours of training, you've only done 2 hours, that's not good. So, I could speak about that.
A lot of landmines there for people to tread on, isn't it? It's really hard.
Yeah, it's huge amounts. But again, we've got to convince people that, you know, doing the hard intensity every single session of every day is not the answer.
Yeah. And this probably pushes more into that elite space. You're talking a lot there about health and availability. What happens to an elite triathlete when they are in that elite space, and whether they are funded by Oz Triathlon through the institutes, or whether they're sort of going it on a solo mission? What happens to those athletes when they aren't doing these things right? There you go.
When they are doing the things right?
Oh, well, when they aren't, like say they've been categorized, they're getting all the support now, and they're like, right, I'm on the right pathway. This is actually a real thing for me.
Yeah.
What can happen to them if they're not, if they do get injured, and they're not rehabbing properly, or they're not buying into these sorts of things you've just talked about?
Well, the system is judged on its performances. So if you're a categorized athlete, you've gotten there by way of being a good athlete and you've had some race results. So it's really important to understand that the first part of the puzzle is getting to that point where you are a competitive athlete and you've competed and you've won, or you've shown glimpses of winning. So already you have an understanding of what it takes to win. Now, as long as my ass is pointing south, you aren't doing that alone. You aren't doing that on. I've never met a triathlete that's gone and said, I've done this all on my own. Like the boys that I work with have a team of 7 people invested in them. So they have physio treatment every week. They obviously have a head coach. So my role is to plan out the training for the week. It's to well in advance. So not just the day before, but the week at least before, and even longer than that, the month before. So I control the intensity, I control the load management, I control where we swim, when we swim, how we ride, when we ride, where we ride, and same with the run. And out from that is I have a strength and conditioning team that work with us, that help me with their strength and conditioning. So that's in the gym, but an extension of them is they also look at some of the metrics. So they look at HRV, they look at sleep patterns for me. So they're more than just someone that's telling them to throw tin around in the gym.
Yep.
So there's I want every team member that we work with to have more than one part of their armoring. So yeah, our strength and conditioning coach, he looks at HRV, sleep patterns, he's a great communicator. The physio also, he can do strength and conditioning, so he can monitor what they do. We have a fantastic dietitian that talks to the guys about training fuel, racing fuel, and more importantly, recovery fuel. And how quickly. So people think, yeah, I'm eating adequately, but are you eating adequately at the right time?
Yeah.
So how quickly do you have calories in your hand post a session?
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't got them within 5 minutes, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
So, Alyssa,
so it sounds like they're within the system, which is great to hear. There's like enough support. There's enough knowledge.
Yeah.
So like what you've sort of alluded to before is that the athlete's got to have that buy-in and that ability to listen, pace themselves, apply those teachings, whether it's, okay, well, how do I get calories in my hand 5 minutes? Well, talk to the dietitian, they'll tell you. And then you've just got to go and actually shop and do those things. Which,
to that point, Macca, I think that's the toughest part. And that is one of the reasons why we lose athletes, is because I said earlier, this is such a tough sport to get right. The biggest piece of that to being available to train, to race, is organization. So how organized are you to eat 6 times a day?
Yep.
And the guys I'm working with, they're eating 6 to 8 times a day. So that takes time and effort and money. You've got to make sure the fridge is full, the cupboards are stacked. You've got to make sure that a huge part of your existence is spent on fueling and the right things. It's not just throwing a Vegemite sandwich down your throat. It's going, well, I need protein, carbohydrates, electrolytes, and fats all together at once. And that's the first 5 minutes after training. And then I need to go home and create a meal that will give me 1,500 calories before I then have dessert before I go to bed. So that gets
your days are pretty stacked with all the things you need to do, aren't they?
100%. And you've got to be organized. You've got to know what you can handle as far as your stomach. There's so many different things out there that people can't eat or don't want to eat because of whatever reasons. But there's always an option. There's never been better options in foods within the food groups to be able to maintain good fuel sources. So, but being organized is the toughest thing. You need to talk to mum and dad, who goes, hang on, we've always just given you a Vegemite sandwich. Now you're asking us to buy cook chooks every day. Like that's an extra $13 on top of our budget a week, a day, you know, but that's the quickest and easiest way to get some protein in. Break apart that chicken and just eat it.
Yeah.
If you like meat. If you don't, then got to get it other ways. But it can do your mind in.
Like I remember in Vichy this year, where you're there with Matt and Brando for the French Grand Prix, and you had in your backpack or whatever a shake, a protein shaker bottle for each athlete. And I was like, oh, he's basically doing the dietitian's job as well. But I was thinking, just like what you normally do with a shaker, you just have one sort of serve of powder and fill it up with water. But you were like, no, we've got like the extra calorie version. We've got 2 scoops in each bottle. So it was just highlighted even more like how much you need to fuel.
Yeah. The detail is quite extraordinary. And to be fair, that what you saw there in Vichy is, preparing athletes to win World Series races, not just French Grand Prix, but even the lower level. I was really interested to see some of the kids yesterday who had mum running around with a little cooler bag, and I heard one father say, I've got your chocolate milk, I've got your chicken sandwich here. And I went, that's outstanding. That was probably one parent. I bought a big esky and I had my lunch in there, but there was no one else's lunch in there. And I was like, okay, right. Well, we've got to do things to improve this area. Yeah. But even more so, we've got to get the athletes to be more curious around it and go, there's got to be more to it than me just feeling absolutely rubbish all the time. And this has got nothing to do with training. It's just, you could train 6 hours a week, and I can guarantee you, if you're fueling effectively, you'll get better than someone training 20 hours a week with terrible technique, terrible fueling strategies, and not enough recovery.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's another philosophy of ours, is that Matt Hauser doesn't like training 40 hours a week, and his body is not suited to that. So we focus really heavily on recovery strategies and strength and conditioning and things like that can give him a robustness, his immune system, making sure that's well organized for the stresses of not being a great sleeper. So, all these strategies have slowly but surely come into play. And guess what? It's all come about because we've failed over time with certain things.
Yep.
Haven't hit key races, haven't hit key sessions because the recovery hasn't been. And I say we, even though it's up to him, but it's me driving some of those conversations with him, saying, hey, mate, we haven't been able to hit this Monday morning swim for a long time. Why is that? I've probably not eaten enough on Sunday, whatever it is. And it's just conversation to go, right, okay, let's think of a strategy to look after ourselves on a low training day to be able to fuel us adequately for a higher training day. So
nothing to do with running faster or
no.
exercise.
No. And our Monday swim isn't a tough, high VO2 swim. It's a solid aerobic swim. And I guess for me, I can see straight away when someone's not hitting their rating or their stroke counting or whatever they are when they're swimming, to go, okay, we've got something here hasn't worked well. Not in this session, but as a consequence of maybe what happened yesterday or the day before. So
I know. Like, that was one thing I definitely noticed was, and this will probably lead us into coach development a little bit, was, people get caught up in, as coaches, understanding the technical side of things, and that's really good, and you need to have those sorts of things, and maybe the science of physiology and lactates and VO2 maxes and all these sorts of things. But I think a key skill I noticed from yourself was the ability to notice stuff. So things like that, like if you're on pool deck and you're front and center with an athlete most days, what they should be swimming like. You can see when they're being lazy in their stroke. And if they are being lazy in their stroke, well, why is that? And that's what you said, it could have been something that happened or didn't happen 2 days ago. We've talked a fair bit about kind of what athletes need to do. What about coaches? working, and you've obviously done this, what about coaches working from club level up to elite level? What are some of the things that they need to do more of, or they need to stop doing? How would you like to see coaches come through?
I think the biggest thing is understanding if you want to evolve with your athlete and, for example, get them to the Olympics. I mean, I was very clear early in my career. I wanted to take athletes to the Olympics. I was very clear. I shouted it from the rooftops. And
I remember in 2009, I was on my level 1 just doing the classroom stuff, and you came in for a segment. And I remember distinctly, it was like, you said you've got 3 KPIs and they're gold, silver, bronze. So it was pretty clear from the outset that your focus was your focus.
Yeah. And I've got no dramas saying that. And people say, oh, it's not about you, the coach, it's about the athletes. But the journey I'm on is about helping athletes get there. But I'm not going to hide from the fact that I want success too. I want to be part of that success. I want to be a part of history. I want to be, my legacy, I feel, is the impact I can make on athletes and others around me that are on the journey with us. That's why I've always had an open door policy, why I've always gotten back to coaches. I've spent time talking to their athletes or doing whatever, because that's how I started. I was fortunate that I seeked out the very best swim coaches in my area.
Because you did work with Sweetenham, didn't you?
I had some time with Bill, and I sourced him and found where he was and tested him. Weird story, but I followed him into a men's toilet once and said, I need to talk to you. And he sort of looked at me alarmingly and wondered, who the heck's this guy? And I went, I'm a swimming coach. I believe you're the best. I want to learn from you. And he sort of went, well, let me wash my hand. And then I want to shake it and I'll give you my phone number. And he invited me into a Singapore training camp that he was at and he coached. And I did not speak the whole 3 days. I just listened and watched the way that he interacted with athletes. And I made the time. I took time off work. I was working in my swimming business, but I was also working part-time at a bike shop to make ends meet. And I went, I'm not working for 3 days, because for me to be that Olympic coach I want to be, I have to invest into this. And I went and spent 3 days with Bill, and it was the best thing I could have done, because one, it was really repetitive. And I saw this repetitiveness with the communication, the language he used. Session 1 to session 2 had familiarity. There was things the athletes understood, and he explained it as if it was the first time he ever explained it. Yet the athletes looked at him as if it was the first time they'd ever heard it. But I'm looking at the board going, that's a similar warm-up to you did this morning. And I just understood. And he told me a story about how he was a tennis coach. And I went, you're a tennis coach? He goes, yeah, well, I couldn't be a swim coach in England. And I walked onto a tennis court because I was delivering drinks around this resort, and I had white on, a white shirt, white pants, white shoes. And I just walked onto this court, and they've gone, oh, are you the coach? And he went, yep.
Wow.
Well, behold, that coach didn't turn up, but he started coaching tennis. And he got a job from that. And I just went, well, how'd you do that? And he goes, well, coaching's coaching. It's all about communication and asking questions of the athletes and being repetitive. And from that, he became a very successful tennis coach early on in his career.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, things like that, I think is really important as a developing coach, is that don't say you can only get them so far if you want to go further. Like, you've got to put yourself out there, get a bit uncomfortable. All the hybrid performance coaches I know have a similar story where they, pushed the door open on the bus and just jumped on the bus and got told to get off. And they went, well, I'll stand. I'll just stand on the bus. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then just start talking to people. It's about, I've always said, if someone says no to you, that's only the start of the conversation.
That's the first no.
That's the
Before
first
there's
one.
a yes. Yeah.
Give me 3 or 4, or kick me with your boot out the door or whatever, but just give me an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always done. I've always sort of seeked out people that have been there, done that, and I've always been curious. And I hate saying it, but I don't know that coaches are curious enough to do what it takes, because they're so busy. Busy trying to make money. They're busy trying to manage what they're doing. They're busy managing 6 different parts of their business. But for me, unashamedly, I wanted to be an Olympic coach.
Yeah.
And people say, "Oh, you're a great high performance coach." I'm like, no, I'm a development coach. I'm still developing. I don't like the term high performance coach, because any high performance coach I know, they're still developing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So what's yeah, do you think, so it sounds like you would like to see coach development have a lot more emphasis on those softer skills rather than obviously you've got to have the technical knowledge, but you can develop that through classrooms or, you know, being in the field. Do you think there's enough like formal courses, and I guess like developing those soft skills comes with experience and doing mentorships or reaching out to people, and it doesn't always have to be in sport or the sport that you're coaching. Do you think there's enough being done in that space or offered, or because sometimes I've heard coaches say, "Oh, well, there's no coach development opportunities," but then I'm sort of like, yeah, I get that, because, you know, maybe a course is only offered every 2 years or whatever it might be, but there's no shortage of other coaches or clubs or groups that you could go to and just observe or ask questions.
Yeah. Oh, it's inexcusable when people say that to me. I go, hang on, you don't need a coach's course to be a coach. You might need that to obtain your accreditation through Austri or Swimming Australia or whatever it might be, but the courses I currently do, they're all about leadership and communication. They're all about interacting with people. One of the subjects I've been working on lately is identity, understanding who I am first to be able to then sell the dream. So unless I can be really focused on my own belief system, I can't empower someone else to do something. You know, no matter how good my athletes are, I'm only as good as they are doing what I ask them to do, and understanding and navigating how to do it for themselves. So I've got to have a way of being able to communicate that's effective for where they're at the time. So
meet them where they are, sort of thing.
Yeah, you can't dictate coaching anymore. You can't. Back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you could dictate coaching. You cannot do that now. You've got to allow athletes the buy-in and the belief, and they have to have a voice, and that takes skill. So I would suggest coaches, if they want to learn how to be a better coach, go and learn, to your point, the soft skills more about communication. You'll get more out of an athlete when they have a real respect for you than you will if you're yelling down their throat what to do, because they'll just shut off. But if you say to them, "How did this feel when we spoke about you and your catch?" I just moved my hand slightly across from my shoulder and I felt like I could grab the water better. Excellent. How do I keep reminding you of that if I see it slip off center? I just say my shoulder line. Okay. There's a conversation I've had with an athlete that they've come up with the answer. I've just got to remind them from time to time of that. So that's a soft skill that I haven't told them what to do. They've helped navigate it. They've said the right thing, exactly what I wanted them to say. So there's so many courses, short courses online and stuff like that I've done. I'm always looking for the next thing to try and help work on who I am. So, and I haven't done a coaching course in, I don't know how long, 20 years probably, but I'm always looking at, well, how can I be a better educator, communicator, and just in general, be a good bloke?
It sounds like there could be a Atkins Institute of Coaching coming up soon.
Oh, look, I love mentoring. I've worked with the AIS and mentoring coaches, and I'm hoping I can do more of that. And I love working with people like you and having conversations. And, you know, I've got a few other coaches that I really connect with well, like Steve Gleason, like, you know, he's a survivor in WA and now coaching Australia's best Ironman athlete like Nick Thompson. And not a lot of people know that. And I'm just so damn proud of how he's going with Nick, because Nick is on a mad one, and
he's on a tear, right?
Yeah, and Steve's got a lot to do with that, and that's just something I'm there like a proud big brother, because we talk in depth, and we have big conversations about all sorts of things around the sport, but life as well. And again, I love that part of my job, that I can talk to people like yourself and hopefully give off a bit of enthusiasm around our sport, because, you know, athletes come and go, but coaches are the ones that they're anchored to what they're doing, and they stay put. But we emotionally go through so much, and
definitely,
it is such a lonely career at times. You know, people go, "Oh, you're overseas for 6 months of the year." I mean, yeah, but I'm with a bunch of 20-something-year-old blokes that don't always want to hang around with me, and I shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going out having dinner by myself or whatever, and it's lonely. But
you might be around people, but it's the coach-athlete relationship. You can't necessarily be their BFF, because then how do you have those hard conversations?
Correct. Exactly. Exactly right. So, yeah. But overall, you know, there's so many things out there that coaches can do to be better.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I know we've been on the call for a little bit now, but speaking of being part of history, potentially, how are you going this week? And what does this week have in store for you before the house gets on the start line?
He's had an amazing year, and I spoke earlier about athlete accountability, and the end of last year, I was done with coaching. I got back from Paris and I was fried. I'd been, you know, there 178 days straight away, and it was just, I was tired. I was feeling sorry for myself that I'd missed so much at home, and we didn't quite hit the results with Matt. But then, you know, the experience I had with Lauren was amazing, but then probably the other side of it was not great, just being again on my own for so long. And him and I had this amazing conversation, and he just made me realize that we're not done yet. So, but he took charge of that, and he said, I asked him, I used the analogy that I felt like the last cycle, I was driving the bus and he was just sitting up the back with his legs up and, you know, chilling. And he was still allowing everyone that I needed on the bus and doing everything he needed to, but it was just missing that ownership of his destiny. And to his credit, him and I had this really frank conversation. He said, no, I'm going to own this now. So I'm on the bus. He's driving it, but I'm checking the tickets. So I'm going up and down the bus, right? What are you doing? Who are you here with? Why are you here? Making sure everyone's on the bus. And he's done, regardless of how Wollongong goes, it is a remarkable season. 3 wins, 2 silvers. That's 5 podiums, which is just plus winning Mooloolaba, plus, you know, there is no one.
Would that have to be the best Australian male short course performance ever, like year, as far as like
I think it is so far. Obviously we haven't had a world champion since 2003, and the exciting thing is that Matt's in a position where he can win it in this series. Now, of course he wants to win, but I keep saying to him, just remember, when you're feeling the pinch, this is the first year of a 4-year cycle. We want him on the start line in LA, knowing that he's done everything he possibly can do. He's clear of mind, and he's ready to go out there and deliver a performance that him and I know he can do. And if that's the case, and we know that he's going to be there or thereabouts to challenge for a medal.
Yep.
Now, this race, obviously, the expectation, because it's at home, is a little different, but this guy loves a hometown support. He loves to feel the energy from the crowd. I know that he's going to go out there and give everything possible. I know that he's prepared well. I know that he's in really, really good nick. And, you know, my job is just to be there, support him, hug him, love him, tell him how amazing he is, and just get him on the start line in the best shape possible. And regardless of what happens in Wollongong, he's had an amazing year. But everyone who knows him knows that he's going to go out there and go deep. And there's a few people.
If anyone can go deep, it's that fella.
Yeah, exactly. And I just get goosebumps thinking about it. But we don't necessarily talk about results. We talk about just being him, and being him is happy.
Yeah.
And there'll be no one happier than being down there and seeing all the green and gold, meeting people. You know, I just hope he can contain his energy and make sure he's got a lot to give on Sunday at 5 o'clock Wollongong time.
I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people trying to get some of his time while he's down there. So like you said, checking the tickets and making sure.
I'll be
people are getting involved.
Somewhat a bodyguard, I think, for the week, but that's all right. We'll look after each other. But I couldn't be prouder of him. Everyone loves him, and I do too. So it's going to be really exciting.
No, that's awesome, Dano. Big week coming up. Thanks for your time at the start of the week, because I know there's zero chance of getting any other time the closer you get to the big day. So hopefully I'll catch up with you in Wollongong, and all the best for the rest of the week.
Thanks, Macca. Appreciate the chat.
No worries.
See you, mate.
See ya.